Two very important windows that open up that allow your body and your brain to be more suggestible to information. That is, when you wake up in the morning, your brain waves go from very slow delta to theta to alpha to beta. And when you go to bed at night, you go from beta to alpha, theta to delta. So you slide up the scale when you wake up, and you slide down the scale when you go to bed at night. And most people, when they go to bed at night, they just go from beta, boom, right down the delta. They fall very quickly. You can teach people then how to just sit and slow everything down and begin to visualize, begin to affirm, begin to change their thoughts, to begin to work with their body. And it seems, according to our research, that those changes can last. So what do most people do when they wake up in the morning? Your brain is a record of the past. It's an artifact, a memory bank of everything you've learned and experienced to this moment. So people wake up in the morning and they start thinking about their problems. And those problems are memories in the brain that are connected to certain people and certain things at certain times and places. So they wake up in the morning and they start thinking in the past. Now, the moment they start having those thoughts, every one of those experiences has an emotion associated with it. So when they start thinking about their problems, or the problems of the world, or the problems of their body, or whatever it is, problems at work, they all of a sudden start to feel the correlated emotion. So now their body's in the past. So now people then get caught up in an emotion, they reaffirm their identity. They could wake up in the morning and feel nothing at all. And then all of a sudden they say, well, wait a second, I got to get back to myself. So they start thinking about their problems, and here come the emotions, and they say, oh, now I feel like me again. So those emotions then begin to influence our thoughts. Like if you feel like a failure, you're going to think you're a failure. And when you think you're a failure, you're going to feel like a failure. And when you feel like a failure, you're going to think more thoughts equal to being a failure. And the cycle of thinking and feeling and feeling and thinking causes you to say, I am a failure. And the repetition of that process of thinking and feeling and feeling and thinking conditions the body to become the mind of that emotion. Now the emotion is stored in the body. Now the body's literally in the past. And the body, as the unconscious mind, doesn't know the difference between the actual experience that's creating the emotion and the emotion that you're creating by thought alone. Your body's believing it's in the same experience 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So then getting people out of the past is the work. So then they wake up in the morning after they reaffirm who they are, and they can't think greater than how they feel. They're in the familiar past. So if you're in the familiar past, you're going to do the things that reaffirm the emotions of your predictable future. So you wake up in the morning, you check your WhatsApp, you check your text, you check your Twitter, you tweet, you check your Facebook, you check your email, you check the news. Now you are really connected to everything that's known in your life. And then you run through a series of routine behaviors. You move around your house the same way you always do. You do all the same things. You go to the same grocery store. You buy the same food. You shop the same way. You do all these, you watch the same TV shows. And people do this for 10, 20, 30 years. Now, their body's on autopilot, and their body's dragging them into a predictable future based on what they did in the past. We could actually take their yesterday and lift it up and set it on their tomorrow, which means then they've lost their free will to a program. So now the familiar past and the predictable future is called the known. There's only one place that you have to train a person to be so that they're not in the known, they're in the unknown, and that's called the present moment. So people get very happy being unhappy because they would rather cling to their unhappiness than take a chance in possibility. So stepping into that river and beginning to make a new choice and understanding that that uncertainty, that unpredictability is the unknown. Now you're in that river of change, and it is the neurological, the biological, the chemical, hormonal, genetic death of the old self. People say to me, well, if there's uncertainty, I can't predict my future. And I always say the same thing. The best way to predict your future is to create it. Not in the known, right there. That uncertainty, you can learn now how to regulate your state. Instead of living in fear because the idea that things are going to get worse, the idea that you can't predict, the idea of being uncertain or can't control something actually sets off the stress response. So now you're in the unknown, and the survival gene is switched on. Of course, people are going out of the infinite possibilities that exist in the quantum field. They're going to select the worst scenario in their mind, right? So then what if you're in the unknown and you understand that, and now you can work back into that present moment and you say, what thoughts do I want to fire and wire in my brain, put my attention behind? What behaviors today, one day, what behaviors do I want to demonstrate? And the act of closing your eyes and mentally rehearsing who you're going to be when you open your eyes begins to install the neurological hardware in your brain to look like you've already done it. Now the brain is no longer a record of the past. Now it's a map to the future. So by rehearsing mentally and doing it over and over again, the hardware becomes a software program, and who knows, you just might start acting like a happy person. Well, there's no magic there. You install the circuitry. You may start thinking in more unlimited ways. You put those circuits in place. Now here's the tough part. Can you teach your body emotionally what that future is going to feel like before it's made manifest? That means you can't wait for your healing to feel gratitude and wholeness. You can't wait for your wealth to feel worthy and abundant. You can't wait for your new lover to feel love. That's the old model of reality of cause and effect. Waiting for something outside of us to take away our emptiness and pain that we feel inside of us. That's Newtonian cause and effect. The quantum model of reality is about causing an effect. That means the moment you start feeling worthy and abundant, you're generating wealth. The moment you're in love with yourself and you're in love with life, you create an equal. The moment you start feeling gratitude and wholeness, your healing actually starts to begin. So then the word meditation literally means to become familiar with. That's what that word means. So the biological model is you got to become familiar with your unconscious thoughts. You got to become aware of your unconscious habits and behaviors. You got to become so familiar with your emotional state, saying, oh my God, I've been feeling guilt for the last 10 years. I didn't know it was guilt. It just felt like me. So then as you begin to observe those states of mind and body, consciously you're no longer the program. You're the consciousness observing the program, and you start pulling consciousness out of our biology, objectifying our subjective self. Now, that overcoming process is the most important part of this work, because once you overcome it, you're no longer looking at your future through the lens of the past. In your brain and in your body, chemically and emotionally, you're seeing possibilities. So then it's natural, once you've disentangled from those programs, to start thinking differently, to start acting differently, to start feeling differently. And as you start thinking differently, firing and wiring, and you start installing the circuits and rehearsing who you're going to be, you start behaving differently, you start feeling differently, you keep doing that, it's going to begin to become familiar to you. And over time, as you overcome those aspects of yourself, you're actually becoming somebody else. There's a becoming process that begins to take place. And some people do it very quickly. Other people, it just takes some time. But once you understand the formula, and once you understand what it all means, you start seeing people make some pretty big changes. And we just had a group of scientists study a bunch of our brain scans in Bond University in Australia. Thousands and thousands of brain scans. She called me up and she said, we have never seen a community of people have the ability to change their brain waves so quickly. Like 4 seconds, 5 seconds, 9 seconds. They've practiced it enough times that they know how to silence the critic in their brain. That thinking is the analytical mind. And as you learn how to change your brainwaves, that default mode network, that voice in your head goes away. And our research shows that it goes away during the meditation, and then it goes away for the majority of the days. When I do my inner work, the most important thing for me is to settle into that present moment, because when there's significant biological changes that are taking place in the brain and the heart, sometimes you feel so amazing you don't want anything any longer. You feel like you have everything, and that's what I call the natural state of being. There's coherence, high level of order in the brain. The brain is synchronized, it's orderly. The heart is synchronized, it's orderly. It's driving new energy to the brain. Once energy moves into the heart, our research as well as other research shows that it amplifies energy into the brain. Now you have a different awareness. You know, you're feeling differently, you're thinking differently, because you're at a different level of consciousness. So getting to that point where you're self-regulated, you no longer live in lack. You no longer live in separation. In fact, you're no longer needing anything out there to bring you joy or happiness. It's actually coming from within. So now you're more tolerant with people. You're less reactive. You don't really want to emotionally react because you like the way you feel. And our research shows that people's oxytocin levels, their love chemicals, are way higher than the average person. That's because you practice. So every day they practice opening their heart. In survival, in stress, not a time to open your heart, right? It's time to run, fight, or hide. We close that down. We stop trusting that, and we stop trusting ourselves, and no energy is in there. And so, of course, there's all kinds of health conditions that are a result of that. So then you practice opening your heart every day, and you say, I'm not getting up till I feel like I'm in love with life. Well, now game is on. You're out of the bleachers. You're on the field. And in the beginning, yeah, it takes a little work. But over time, you start practicing that. All of a sudden, when you feel that way and you're no longer needing it from your outer world, you're going to be more unconditional with everybody in your life. You're not going to want to lose this feeling. You're going to say, I feel so good that I'll forgive you. I don't really care, because nothing's worth losing this feeling. And so people work for it, and they covet it, and they learn how to maintain it. And it's not just about doing the meditation and then getting up and getting on the freeway and flipping people off or judging your coworker the next moment. You're doing that meditation to change your state of being, and then your job is to maintain that modified state of mind and body your entire day. And when you do, get ready. Something unusual, something different, some synchronicity, some coincidence, some opportunity is going to show up in your world. That's the law. And then all of a sudden you start believing you're more of the creator of your life, less of the victim of your life. Because victimization is like, why are you unhappy? Oh, because of this person or that thing. And what you're really saying from a biological standpoint is something out there. I'm allowing something out there to control how I feel and how I think. And that's a victim. So when you start to see how you think and how you feel begins to produce an effect in your life, you start believing less that you're a victim and more that you're the creator of your life. And that's when people start getting empowered, and they say, wow, I didn't do anything. It just kind of came to me, of course, because nobody changes until they change their energy. When you change your energy, you change your life. And changing your state of being with a clear intention and an elevated emotion is producing a very dramatic change in the field. And your job is to be able to maintain it independent of the conditions in your environment, independent of the chemical, emotional, habitual needs in your body, and independent of time. And being able to do that for an extended period of time, you start to see the universe start to give you feedback. And when you start measuring, wow, you at cause, then you wake up in the morning and you want to do it. It's not like, oh, geez, I got to go create my life. It's not like that. It's more like, oh my God, the magic's happening. I don't want to stop. I don't want to lose the magic. I want to keep going. And so people are enthusiastic and theos, filled with God. They're inspired to create. And I think that we are naturally creators. And so we see profound changes in people's body and their brain and in every level when they just keep practicing. A simple thing to do, really simple. It's such an easy thing, is when you wake up in the morning, instead of remembering your problems and getting into those feelings or getting up and doing your routine, sit up, close your eyes, and ask yourself, okay, who do I want to be today? And say, okay, before I create this new person, let me just take a moment and let me just become conscious of the thoughts that I think that don't support me any longer. I can't, it's too hard, I'll start tomorrow. You start writing those thoughts down, becoming familiar with those. Then you review your behaviors, even how you speak. Do you complain? Do you make excuses? Do you feel sorry for yourself? Do you procrastinate? Do you judge other people? Just get a list and write those down. Look at the emotions that cause you to fall to a lower denominator every day, and just become aware of those and review those thoughts, behaviors, and emotions. Become so familiar to them, so conscious of them, that you won't go unconscious to them in your waking day. Now, that is the process. That's to know thyself. And it's amazing.
Look at me!
Just get a list and write those down. Look at the emotions that cause you to fall to a lower denominator every day, and just become aware of those and review those thoughts, behaviors, and emotions. Become so familiar to them, so conscious of them, that you won't go unconscious to them in your waking day. Now, that is the process. That's to know thyself. And it's amazing because you could actually anticipate the thought before it's coming when you get good at this. You're like, oh, no, not going to go there, because you're so aware of those thoughts now, because nerve cells that no longer fire together no longer wire together. So you begin to dampen down the connections in your brain that have to do with the old self. You're no longer having the same thought that's producing the same chemical that's signaling the body to feel a certain way. You're disrupting that process. In the beginning, yeah, that's uncomfortable. The body's been in that familiar state. Then if you say, okay, what thoughts do I want to fire and wire in my brain? And you have those thoughts and put all of your attention behind them. What behaviors? How am I going to be with my husband? How am I going to be at work? How am I going to be on the phone today? Who am I going to make a difference with? And start to review. Just review. Think about and plan who you're going to be. And then you say, okay, what emotions am I going to live by the entire day? Let the test begin. That no person, no thing is going to steal my joy today. I'm not going to mismanage my attention and lose the love that I feel now. And you start working on those emotional states and just say, I'm not getting up until I feel that feeling. Now, that little small exercise of just deciding who you no longer want to be and reviewing who you do want to be takes 20 minutes. And you get up and you feel better. And your body begins to make a whole different set of chemicals, a whole pharmacy of chemicals that really start to make you see reality differently. We don't see things how they are, we see things how we are. So when you change who you are, you're going to get a broader spectrum of the way the world really is. And look, people who are unhappy with themselves are unhappy with everybody. People who hate other people, they hate themselves. People who judge other people, they're always judging themselves. People who love themselves love other people. People who are happy with themselves are happy with other people. And you can say to me, well, it was this person or that thing that did it to me 25 years ago. And I'm going to say to you, wow, that means you haven't changed in 25 years. That experience was the end of your evolution, because when you say that person or that experience did it to me, you're saying I stopped growing in that moment. And the stronger the emotion you feel, the more altered you feel, the more you put your attention on that person. So then it makes total sense then. Latest research on memory says that 50% of what we talk about in our past isn't even the truth, that memory's creative. We make stuff up. That means people are reliving a miserable life that they never even had, just to reaffirm the fact that they're stuck in their past. And it's all because they want to condition their body. Conditioning process just requires a symbol, a thought, a stimulus, and a feeling. And so you remember the event, you feel the emotion, you're conditioning your body more into the past. Let's take that person, let's put him in a rocket and shoot him to the moon. Now what? What do you want to do now? I mean, you're still left with you, right? And so then what we know is that getting people out of that state, bringing them up to the present moment, when they start letting go, when they finally let go, the freedom that they feel, the joy that they feel, causes them to naturally feel these elevated emotions. So the overcoming process, that is such an important element. Most people, I just want to focus on the positive. I don't want to really, well, no. If 95% of you is an unconscious set of programs, you got to become conscious of them so you don't go unconscious during your normal day, because you'll go right back into the unconscious habit and thinking the same way, acting the same way, feeling the same way, and wondering why your life isn't changing. And that's the work.